Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for songs that sound so similar that in one way or another, they triggered some sort of legal action. Number 30, Flame featuring Lecrae and John Riley, Joyful Noise, versus Katy Perry featuring Juicy J, Dark Horse. Pop artist Katy Perry drew inspiration from The Occult for her hit Dark Horse.
It's in the palm of your hand now, baby. It's a yes or no, maybe.
Her inspiration was too much for Christian rapper Flame, who not only took issue with supposed pagan themes in the song, but also claimed it ripped off his song Joyful Noise.
Know what it is? I love it.
He filed a lawsuit for copyright infringement, resulting in a judgment in his favor, and he was awarded $2.78 million. However, after an appeal, that decision was overturned in 2020. The case went to the Ninth Circuit, and the decision to overturn the case was upheld as it was determined that the elements Flame claimed copyright over were too common to warrant such a protection.
What's your mind? What's your mind?
There's no going back.
Number 29, Article Sound System, Live Your Life, versus Dua Lipa, Levitating. We're sure Dua Lipa was levitating after the success of her fifth single off her album Future Nostalgia.
Got you, moonlight, you're my starlight. I need you all night.
However, in March of 2022, the band Article Sound System filed a copyright infringement accusing the singer of using the hook from their 2017 song Live Your Life. While the band claimed that the producers of Levitating had prior knowledge of their song, they eventually dropped their suit after a judge ruled that they had no evidence to back up their claim. Lipa was hit with another lawsuit in the same month from songwriters L. Russell Brown and Sandy Linzer, who claimed the melody for Levitating is taken from Wiggle and Giggle All Night by the band Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah Band.
I was walking down the street when I saw the handsome soldier boy winkle, winkle, winking at me. He said,
That case is still pending. Number 28, Bruno Mars, When I Was Your Man, versus Miley Cyrus, Flowers. Flowers was a huge hit for Miley Cyrus in 2023.
I can buy myself flowers, write my name in the sand.
It was the best-selling single worldwide for that year. In September of 2024, however, a lawsuit was filed by Tempo Music Investments claiming that the song took unauthorized elements from Bruno Mars's When I Was Your Man.
I should have bought you flowers and held your hand.
When Flowers was first released, many noted similarities around the songs, especially those present in the chorus. It remains to be seen what the result of this case will be, but Tempo Music is seeking to stop Cyrus from reproducing, distributing, and publicly performing the song. Number 27, Sammy Switch, Oh Why, versus Ed Sheeran, Shape of You. Shape of You had already been recognized for its interpolation of the TLC classic No Scrubs.
I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me.
But discussions for usage had been ongoing before the song's release. Conversely, Ed Sheeran went to court to combat a claim made by Sammy Chokri and Ross O'Donoghue that he had lifted parts of their song Oh Why. In April of 2022, the case was ruled in Sheeran's favor, with the judge finding that while there were similarities between the tracks, the use of the phrase "oh I" was too general for there to be infringement.
I'm in love with your body.
Number 26, The Turtles, You Showed Me, versus De La Soul, Transmitting Live from Mars. On their debut album 3 Feet High and Rising, hip-hop group De La Soul included the interlude track Transmitting Live from Mars.
Quelle heure est-il?
It includes a 12-second sample of the song You Showed Me by the Turtles. At the time, sampling was a relatively new technique, and De La Soul didn't seek permission. Mark Volman and Howard Kalin of the Turtles took exception to the unauthorized use and filed litigation against De La Soul. The matter was settled out of court, with an apparent $1.7 million going to Volman and Kalin as a result. Number 25, David Bowie, Boys Keep Swinging versus Blur, Middle of the Road. It's no secret that David Bowie is a big influence on Blur, and in this case, perhaps too much of an influence. On their fifth album, the band recorded the song Middle of the Road, which uses the same chord progression as Bowie's Boys Keep Swinging.
Boys keep swinging, boys always work it out, uncage the colors.
Appearing on Bowie's 1979 album Lodge, he took an experimental approach to recording, where the same chord progression would be reused among different songs. Blur decided to extend that process to Middle of the Road, and after legal intervention, Bowie and co-writer Brian Eno were added on as songwriters. Number 24, Roy Orbison, Oh Pretty Woman, versus Two Live Crew, Pretty Woman. As nasty as they wanna be, the third album from Two Live Crew was very controversial upon release. It was ruled to be legally obscene, although that would be later overturned. The group had also released a clean version of their album, appropriately titled As Clean as They Wanna Be. One track found on this album not present on the explicit version is a parody of Roy Orbison's Oh Pretty Woman. The song's publisher, Acuff Rose Music, filed a lawsuit claiming that the group's song wasn't protected by fair use.
Pretty woman, walking down the street, pretty woman, the kind I like to meet.
The case went all the way to the Supreme Court, where it found Two Live Crew's Pretty Woman did fall under fair use. Number 23, Gilbert O'Sullivan, Alone Again Naturally, versus Biz Markie, Alone Again. In the golden age of hip-hop, sampling was a commonly used technique for song composition.
I'm alone again, naturally. Alone again.
As it was a relatively new method, it was a bit of a gray area legally, as it was common to not pay or credit the artist of a sampled work. That all changed when rapper Biz Markie released his third album, I Need a Haircut. It contained the song Alone Again, which sampled Gilbert O'Sullivan's Alone Again Naturally. O'Sullivan took Markie to court over the matter. This court case changed how sampling worked, as its use without permission was copyright infringement, thereby needing approval from the copyright holder. Number 22, Spirit, Taurus, versus Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven. Stairway is one of the defining songs of rock music. Some have noticed its distinctive slow-paced opening consisting of arpeggios on acoustic guitar sounds similar to the opening of the 1968 song Taurus by rock band Spirit. In 2014, the band's bassist filed a copyright infringement lawsuit against Led Zeppelin as a way to get Spirit guitarist Randy California a writing credit on Stairway and be entitled to future earnings from the song. After a lot of back and forth in the courts, it wasn't until March of 2020 that the Ninth Circuit Appeals Court found in favor of Led Zeppelin, meaning they didn't infringe on Taurus's copyright.
She's buying a stairway to heaven.
Number 21, 3LW Playas Gon' Play versus Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. The reality of having a massively successful song is that legal action may be incurred against you. That's what happened to Taylor Swift following the release of Shake It Off.
'Cause the players gonna play, and the haters gonna hate.
In 2017, a lawsuit was filed against Swift by Sean Hall and Nate Butler, alleging that she took from their 2001 song Playas Gon' Play, written for the group 3LW. They claimed that Swift's use of Players Gonna Play and Haters Gonna Hate was too similar to lyrics they had written. It wasn't until 2022 that the lawsuit was dropped after an agreement was reached by both parties, although no details were given. Number 20, The Kinks, All Day and All of the Night, versus The Doors, Hello, I Love You. Although The Doors guitarist Robbie Krieger denied that his band copied the chord-driven main riff of the 1964 Kinks track, the Kinks music publishers found that these two singles were just a bit too similar. Turns out, UK courts agreed, so a deal was eventually struck entitling the Kinks to a large share of Hello, I Love You's British royalties. The Doors' song credits remain unchanged, but in 2014, Kinks lead singer and main songwriter Ray Davies suggested to Rolling Stone that an out-of-court settlement had been reached.
Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game.
Number 19, Tom Petty, I Won't Back Down versus Sam Smith, Stay With Me. Traditionally, when songs popped up that sounded a bit Tom Petty, the late Heartbreakers frontman let it slide. But this time, things played out differently.
Will stand my ground, and I won't back down.
Although the bandleader expressed no hard feelings and deemed the similarities between the chorus to his I Won't Back Down and Smith's Stay With Me to be, quote, a musical accident, his publishing company entered the fray all the same.
Won't you stay with me? 'Cause you're all I need.
Perhaps it was because, unlike American Girl and Mary Jane's Last Dance, the TP track in question had a co-writer, fellow Traveling Wilbury and ELO songwriter Jeff Lynne. In the end, Petty and Lynne ended up getting their due credit, along with 12.5% of the Stay With Me royalties. Number 18, Joe Satriani, If I Could Fly versus Coldplay, Viva La Vida. Take notes on this one, you're gonna need them.
It was the wicked and wild wind blew down the doors to let me in.
First up, Brooklyn-based indie alternative band Creaky Board suggested that Coldplay had ripped off their ironically titled The Songs I Didn't Write. However, the British rockers had recorded a demo of Viva prior to that song's first performance.
But when you heard the notes that would have vaulted from my throat.
Then, Joe Satriani stepped up, lawsuit in hand, claiming that Chris Martin and crew borrowed from his If I Could Fly. Things got even more complicated when Yusuf Islam, formerly Cat Stevens, joined in on the fun, pointing out that all of these songs sounded like his Foreigner suite. Satriani's case was later dismissed in 2009.
For some reason I can't explain. I know St. Peter will call my name.
Number 17, The New Seekers, I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing in Perfect Harmony versus Oasis Shaker Maker. Oasis has never tried to hide their reverence for the past when it comes to their own musical style. But this is one case where Noel Gallagher may have borrowed a bit too much. The song I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing in Perfect Harmony began its life as a Coca-Cola jingle, before being fleshed out and recorded by the New Seekers.
I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony.
And ultimately having its melody and some lyrics woven into the fabric of Oasis's Shaker Maker. Most sources claim that Gallagher was forced to change the offending I'd Like to Teach the World line, alter a few notes, and cough up $500,000. Upon losing the aforementioned lawsuit, Gallagher quipped, quote, "We drink Pepsi now." Number 16, Muddy Waters' You Need Love versus Led Zeppelin, Whole Lotta Love. By cranking the tempo and volume of the blues, Led Zepp helped pioneer hard rock and heavy metal. But sometimes they stuck just a bit too close to their roots.
Way down inside, honey, you need it.
While it took them a long time to get caught, the rock icons were finally sued in 1985 for Whole Lotta Love's whole lot of similarities to the Willie Dixon-penned Muddy Waters classic You Need Love.
Baby, way down inside, woman, you need love.
Though things were eventually settled out of court, it obviously wasn't the only time the British rockers were accused of borrowing material. Number 15, The Rubinoos' I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend versus Avril Lavigne, Girlfriend.
I wanna be your boyfriend.
When the Rubinoos stepped up claiming Avril Lavigne had plagiarized them, Avril said, "Rubin who?" But aside from claiming she'd never heard of the band or their song, she and her team chose a risky defense. They said Girlfriend was actually closer to the Rolling Stones' Get Off of My Cloud. Or Mickey. But wait a minute, what about the Ramones song I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend? Had the Rubinoos themselves plagiarized? Ultimately, a musicologist decided the Rubinoos track and Avril's song were completely different based on science, and the case was settled out of court when Avril's manager decided it was cheaper than paying lawyers. Number 14, The Kinks' Picture Book versus The Other Garden Never Got the Chance versus Green Day, Warning. And now, how not to file a lawsuit. In 2001, Colin Mary, songwriter for an obscure English band called The Other Garden, sued Green Day, claiming that Warning was a copy of his song Never Got the Chance. The band's lawyer threatened to sue the punk rockers for as much as $100,000, despite the fact that Mary admitted both his and Green Day's songs had the same distinct riff as Picture Book by the Kinks. Needless to say, the lawsuit was eventually dropped. Number 13. Larrikin Music's Kookaburra vs. Men at Work Down Under. Down Under, a backhanded anthem of all things Aussie and a monster hit in the early 1980s, became a source of legal trouble in the 2000s. Originally, the band's flautist, Greg Ham, borrowed a 2-bar motif from Kookaburra, an Australian children's song. Years went by without incident until the connection between the two tunes was mentioned on the game show Spicks and Specks in 2007. That's when the right holders to Kookaburra, Larrikin Music, came knocking.
Kookaburra is sitting in the old gum tree.
Demanding 60% of Down Under's royalties dating back to 1981. In July 2010, they instead were granted 5%, backdated to 2002. Sadly, Ham passed away in 2012 at the age of 58. And bandmate Colin Hay cites stress from the court case as a contributing factor.
You know, the fact of the matter is that it went unrecognized for 27 years because it was unconscious, it was innocuous, it was naive.
Number 12. Huey Lewis and the News' I Want a New Drug versus Ray Parker Jr., Ghostbusters. Who you gonna call? A lawyer if you're Huey Lewis.
Want a new drug, one I won't spill.
Lewis was actually asked to write a theme for Ghostbusters, but passed on it to write music for Back to the Future. So, when Ray Parker Jr.'s theme for the supernatural comedy came out sounding suspiciously like Huey's I Want a New Drug, Lewis cited plagiarism.
Something strange in your neighborhood. Who you gonna call?
It was settled out of court almost a decade later, and when the News frontman spilled the beans on the confidential settlement on TV, Ray Parker Jr. turned the tables and sued Lewis right back in 2001. Number 11. Sleigh Bells, Infinity Guitars versus Demi Lovato, Stars. Typically, only lyrics and melody are considered copyrightable. For New York band Sleigh Bells, Demi Lovato's Stars sounded, quote, virtually identical to their Infinity guitars, with a little bit of riot rhythm mixed in. But it was chiefly the hand claps and bass drum counter rhythm that were cited.
Walking in, we causing a frenzy. Walking in, we causing a...
It was on this basis that the duo laid a case against Lovato, UMG Recordings, and producers and co-writers Carl Falk and Rami Yacoub. The problem was, Falk and Yacoub claimed no samples were used in the song, and that Demi only wrote one line. The matter was settled in April 2017, and Lovato's team maintained there was no deliberate infringement.
Baby, I'm sorry. Baby, I'm sorry.
Number 10. Creedence Clearwater Revival Run Through the Jungle versus John Fogerty, The Old Man Down the Road. In a very odd move, John Fogerty was sued for sounding like himself.
You got the voices speaking riddle. You got the eyes black as coal.
Fogerty was once the lead vocalist, lead guitarist, and primary songwriter of Creedence Clearwater Revival. But after the band broke up, he relinquished his rights to CCR songs to get out of contractual commitments. So, when Fogerty released the solo track The Old Man Down the Road, Fantasy Records, owner of CCR's song catalog and his label during his Creedence days, claimed it ripped off Run Through the Jungle.
Better run through the jungle. Better run through the jungle.
The swamp rocker beat the case by bringing a guitar to the stand and demonstrating that the two songs were, in fact, quite different, and that you can't actually plagiarize yourself. Well played, Fogerty.
My songs tend to sound like my songs, right?
Number 9. Gordon Jenkins' Crescent City Blues versus Johnny Cash, Folsom Prison Blues. In the annals of song plagiarism, There have been cases of subconscious plagiarism, outright plagiarism, uncleared samples, and downright sneakiness. This is a case of self-amusement gone awry. While stationed in West Germany in 1953, Johnny Cash wrote new lyrics to the melody of Crescent City Blues, inspired by the film Inside the Walls of Folsom Prison.
When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son.
Flash forward a few years, and Cash is now a recording artist short on material. So he offered up his Folsom Prison Blues to producer Sam Phillips, who told Cash not to worry about the legalities.
Oh, I had it coming. I know I can't be free.
15 years later, the Men in Black would pay out $75,000 in retribution. Number 8. The Rolling Stones' The Last Time versus The Verve, Bittersweet Symphony. This 90s Britpop anthem was at the center of a lengthy and contentious plagiarism case. The Verve did obtain the rights to sample part of the Andrew Oldham orchestral version of the classic Stones song. The issue was how much the band used. And according to former Stones manager and rights holder of the song, Alan Klein, it was way too much. So, 100% of the royalties went to Klein, and songwriting credit went to Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. That's when Oldham himself demanded recompense for the specific version of the song they had used. Though it took many years, this story does have a relatively happy ending, with the Stones backing off by 2019 and granting all future royalties to Verve lead singer Richard Ashcroft. Number 7. Chuck Berry, You Can't Catch Me versus the Beatles Come Together.
Here come a flat top, he was moving up with me.
The story starts simply enough. John Lennon used an old Chuck Berry song as a starting point for a new song. But this similarity triggered legal issues with Berry's publisher, the controversial Morris Levy.
Here come old flat top, he come grooving up slowly.
As repayment, Lennon agreed to record 3 songs owned by Levy, and attempted to do so during his rock and roll album sessions, until producer Phil Spector stole the tapes and went into hiding. When the tapes were recovered, Lennon tried reassuring Levy that he was upholding his end of the deal by sharing a rough mix of his progress, which Levy released himself and chased with a $42 million breach of contract lawsuit. Lennon, EMI, and Capitol Records countersued, with Levy being awarded a nominal $6,795 while having to pay out somewhere in the ballpark of $150,000. Number 6. The Chiffons' He's So Fine versus George Harrison, My Sweet Lord. Soon after releasing his solo hit, the first #1 single by a former Beatle, George Harrison found himself at the center of a copyright infringement lawsuit filed by Bright Tunes.
My sweet Lord.
Harrison was accused of plagiarizing the Ronnie Mac penned song He's So Fine. The courts ruled that he had subconsciously copied the Chiffon smash and would owe nearly $1.6 million in damages.
He's a soft-spoken guy. Also seems kind of shy.
But the story doesn't end there. After Harrison fired his manager, the previously mentioned Alan Klein, during the trial, Klein seized the opportunity to buy the copyright to He's So Fine. The courts ultimately decided that Harrison would only have to pay Klein's Abco Industries $587,000, and he ended up with the song's rights. Number 5. The Hollies' The Air That I Breathe versus Radiohead, Creep. This case is so open and shut it's almost dull.
But I'm a creep. I'm a widow.
While writing Creep, Ed O'Brien pointed out to Tom York that the song's bridge had the same chords as The Air That I Breathe. So York decided to grab the song's melody too.
These came upon me and did me.
That song's authors, Albert Hammond and Mike Hazelwood, then sued, but were impressed by the band's honesty and settled for credits and a cut of the Creep royalties. It's a sharp contrast to 2018, when Lana Del Rey would allege that Radiohead's team noticed passing similarities to Creep in her song Get Free, and demanded 100% of her royalties.
Gone is the burden.
Number 4. Marvin Gaye, Gotta Give It Up versus Robin Thicke featuring T.I. and Pharrell Williams, Blurred Lines.
Let's welcome one of the great talents in the history of popular music. Let's get your hands together, gang, for Mr. Marvin Gaye.
In one of many controversies that plagued this summer hit, Robin Thicke actually sued Marvin Gaye's family for alleging the singer had plagiarized the late soul artist. While Thicke admitted he was inspired by Gotta Give It Up, he and co-writer Pharrell Williams contended that despite their similar vibe, they were essentially not the same, citing different chords, keys, and more. Bridgeport Music also became involved due to claims that Blurred Lines sampled Funkadelic's Sexy Ways. Despite lots of support from music industry heavyweights who did not believe you could copyright a feeling, in 2018, a judge ordered Thicke and Williams to pay nearly $5 million to Marvin Gaye's estate.
No more pretending, 'cause now you're winning.
Number 3. Chuck Berry, Sweet Little 16 versus the Beach Boys, Surfin' USA.
Surfing USA.
Here's an instance where the artist openly and knowingly used the tune to an existing song for his new composition.
Surfing USA.
Brian Wilson wanted to write a song about surfing and felt Chuck Berry's Sweet Little 16 was the perfect setting for his surf-themed lyrics. However, he neglected to credit Berry upon its recording and release.
Mommy, leave me, I go. Such a sight to see.
Although Surfin' USA was meant to be viewed as a tribute, Berry's publishing company was unimpressed and forced Wilson's manager to surrender copyright to the rock and roll pioneer's publisher, Arc Music.
Sweet little 16, she's got the grown-up blues.
Number 2. Multiple Artists versus Mark Ronson, Uptown Funk.
Don't believe me, just watch.
We guess it takes a village to write a hit song, too. Before the monster hit that is Uptown Funk was even released, Ronson and company offered some credit to Trinidad James.
Don't believe me, just watch.
After it was released, the Gap Band came knocking, claiming similarities to their Oops Upside Your Head, followed by The Sequence, Collage, and finally Zap in September of 2017. Additionally, Serbian artist Victoria has alleged that the song lifts elements from one of her songs. By 2018, 17% of the track's royalties were transferred to the Gap Band, while the credits have ballooned from Ronson, Bruno Mars, Jeff Basker, and Philip Lawrence to include 6 additional songwriters from their respective groups. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Queen and David Bowie, Under Pressure versus Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby. It takes about 7 notes to recognize Ice Ice Baby for what it is.
Ice, ice, baby.
While the signature bass line amounts to a sample, Vanilla Ice never sought permission to use it, and instead said his tinkering with the riff and adding one note made it original. But in the face of legal action, the rapper caved and granted David Bowie, as well as all 4 members of Queen, due credit and royalties. In 2013, Ice claimed to have bought Under Pressure outright. However, the song's publishing info shows that it's co-owned by companies representing Queen, Bowie, and EMI Music, making Ice's claim a bit dubious. What song do you think is the biggest ripoff? Let us know in the comments.
Come down to mud, soaked in bleach.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.